This series of videos about attention span. I teach high school English, and I spent some recent months reading deeply different authors' books and studies on attention span. And I was looking specifically for authors that didn't simply hand wring and complain about technology. Certainly, technology plays a part in all of our attention spans. Um, but I thought if I were to teach, particularly my ninth graders, well, I'd want them to think about how they manage their own attention and what control they have. Um, so here are some thoughts. It's really important to say that I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a neuroscientist. Um, but kids' capacities to pay attention is the foundational presumption I have to make when I give them work to do. And I can no longer assume that they can sit with something like a young adult fiction novel for any length of time and pay sustained attention without looking at a screen. Um, I want to say I've been teaching since the 90s, and there was a wave where attention issues, particularly with boys, was probably overdiagnosed. And what happened, I feel, is that because it was overdiagnosed, there was a segment of the population that thought that attention issues weren't real, that somehow the overdiagnosis of them invalidated their existence at all. So I just want to say that not only am I not an expert, I'm extracting ideas from experts to share with you. Um, Attention issues are real, and this isn't a magic bullet or a magic fix. It's largely a description of what exists and some things we can do. Secondly, uh, since the 90s, when none of my students, if any, had phones and very few of them had their own computers, even, things are very different now, obviously. And I think it isn't simply a kid problem, it's a human challenge. Uh, Technology is great. I use it all the time. And I'm not anti internet, anti smartphone, anti iPad. Um, when my students do research now, it's just so much easier because of technology than it used to be. And even certain kinds of collaboration uh, done digitally just really facilitate that process really well. But the second thing here is that it's just a fact. You know, if you've been alive long enough, you know that now, even if you're someone who historically has read voraciously, you probably read fewer pages now. There's just more demands on our attention than there ever have been. And that's okay to say. Third, a set of videos is an attempt to help you do what you can do better, and to focus on what matters to you in a more efficient way. So think of the things that you want to be good at. And if you're my student watching this, I hope one of those things is that you want to be the best student you can be. You want to be a top student in however you define that. And I think that a lot of students and a lot of people believe that they have inborn abilities, innate abilities given to them at birth, and that's all they have. So I'm good at English or I'm not. I'm good at math or I'm not. Um, so hopefully these videos give you a sense of control, and a sense of like a proactive mindset. Here are my main sources. This is the big one. The journalist Jonathan Hari. This book blew my mind, and I couldn't recommend it more passionately. Stolen Focus: Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. This was a bit of a quirky book, but I loved it. Jenny Odell was artist in residence at Stanford, and she wrote a book called How to Do Nothing: Resisting the Attention Economy. And this is me with some alums helping my students with an acting project years ago. I don't have that sweater anymore. Um, so my main sources, to go in reverse order, is almost 30 years of teaching high school and these two books. All right. I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing what I've learned. So what's the problem exactly? I think there's a few things to just think of in an introductory way. First, uh, using computer tracking software, the average college student, so these are people who were accepted into colleges, switches tasks every 65 seconds. And we're going to get into why that matters, but that's an important thing to keep in mind. About every minute, attention shifts. And that's college students. Secondly, a UCal study found that the average adult in the workplace switches tasks about every 3 minutes. So a college student, it's about every minute. And the average adult in the workplace switches tasks about every 3 minutes. If you're my student and you're watching this, you might think, okay, fine. That means you're just doing lots of different things. That's a good thing, but be patient. Third, this is why those first two things are not great. University of Oregon study found that if you're focusing on something and are interrupted, it takes on average 23 minutes to go back and regain that same level of focus. I would write that down, have that somewhere in your notebook. And if you're my students, you're taking notes on this. But once any of us are like reading an article in a newspaper or a book, and we pick up our phone and look at it and then go back, it takes about 23 minutes to regain attention. That's significant. And here's just a scary fact. The fastest rising cause of death in the world is distracted driving. And I wonder if I asked you, what's the fastest rising cause of death in the world? How many of us would have said distracted driving? And fifth, and a lot of us feel this, I've taught for almost 30 years. I've never seen students so sleepy. And as a parent of older kids in their late teens, early 20s, I know raising kids in the cell phone universe means some really hard parental choices. The best favor we can do for them is to take technology away at night or disarm the internet at night, because adults and kids, if the phone is in the room, it's just really hard, or the iPad's in the room, it's hard to not be drawn to it, you know? And 40% of Americans are chronically sleep deprived. This doesn't mean that they occasionally don't get enough sleep. This means that their regular pattern is that they don't get enough sleep. And that leads to all kinds of attention issues, safety behind the wheel issues, work inefficiency issues. So this is just sort of the context of the attention problem. I'm going to delve a little bit more deeply into the causes of our struggle with attention, why this is the way it is. I'm going to delve into 5 ways the internet is designed to distract us. And then maybe most importantly, my 4th video is going to deal with what can we do? What's a proactive way to not just ignore technology, but how to use it and not be dominated by it? So I hope this is a good beginning for some deep thinking.